Hello there! Firstly, I want to say apologies for the messy background. Bookcases are in progress, but the books have yet to arrive. Anyway, this will be my background eventually. Today I am here to talk to you about the books I read in January. It was quite a good reading month, so without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So the first book I read this month was a reread, and that was John Steinbeck's East of Eden. I got this lovely edition for Christmas, and because all my books are in storage at the moment and I had a bit of time off over Christmas and this was just sort of sitting there, I just picked it up and started reading. And actually that was really nice to do because I don't often do that, especially when I've just had a book given to me. But I read this quite a while ago now and I remember really loving it, but I don't remember much about what it is about and things like that. So predominantly this is basically a kind of retelling of various stories in the Bible through these families in Dust Bowl America, predominantly the Trasks, but we also get aspects of the Hamiltons in there. I'm not gonna lie, the names of the characters aren't that fresh in my head because baby brain, and I read it quite a long time ago now, so I'm gonna do my best to explain this. So we start with Adam and his older brother. And his brother is quite violent towards him. They have quite a tempestuous relationship. And basically the whole book explores familial relationships and also what they do to us internally, how they shape our lives, how they shape our siblings' lives, just all that stuff. So Adam's brother is not very nice to him and sort of pushes Adam out of the family unit, and then when Adam meets his wife Kathy, who is a whole other kettle of fish, yeah, stuff ensues with his brother that kind of goes on to shape Adam's life and the lives of his children, who are also brothers, who also have a very tempestuous relationship. So throughout the story you have the story of obviously Cain and Abel in there, and you also have aspects of Adam and Eve in there. And it's just really fascinatingly done. It's not the most plot heavy book. It is predominantly just looking at the relationships between these characters and how those relationships shape who they are as people. But it is really, I mean, it's beautifully written because it's Steinbeck. I have to say, having read Grapes of Wrath, which I read after I read East of Eden the first time, I probably enjoyed this less, but only because that is like right up there for me, and it would be interesting actually to reread that and see what I thought of that. This is obviously a very long book, and I mean, you know, the writing in this copy is tiny, so it's quite a slow read, but I would say it's definitely worth it if you haven't read it before. It's one of those books that I think I would love to re-experience for the first time. Yeah, it's just beautiful writing, and it's a really interesting look at the relationships we have with other people and our impact on other people's lives. Then basically the reason that my reading went so well this month is because I picked up quite a few library books, and again, I don't usually get straight to library books, or I feel a bit guilty for reading library books when I've got other books on my shelves, but because all of my books were in storage and it just was a pain in the backside to try and find one to read, I picked up a few books from the library and I read them straight away, and I really enjoyed it, and actually gave me an incentive to pick up a book in the evening instead of distracting myself with all the other stuff that I've been distracting myself with in recent months. So these are the library books. The first one I picked up was Convenience Store Woman by, it's covered over there, Sayaka Murata, and this is translated from Japanese by Ginny Tapley Takamori. This was doing the rounds on BookTube a while ago, and I wanted to buy it then because it sounded intriguing to me. However, it's like $12.99, and I mean, it's really thin and there's not much writing to a page, and I just couldn't justify spending that much money on such a little book. So I was overjoyed when I found it in the library. Sadly, I did not like this at all. Disclaimer, I think it's part of a kind of, it's a lot like a few books that I have read in recent years and that have been doing the rounds about the kind of odd outsider. It reminded me a little bit strangely of Eleanor Oliphant Is Completely Fine, and also the, I can't remember what it's called, a book that I read a while ago, The Life and Times of Donna Creosote or something, I think. And they're books that I think I'm gonna love. So this book is about a woman who, she works in a convenience store. I worked in a supermarket for quite a while when I left college, so you know, that was relatable to me, and I thought I was going to really like it because she kind of uses the convenience store as this crutch to help her understand the world and to, you know, boost her interactions with other people and her understanding of other people, and there are interesting bits in here. Certainly she finds this real comfort in the convenience store, which I can totally relate to. I mean, I hated working in a supermarket. It was the worst period of my life, without a doubt. It was just a bad environment for me to be in, I think, with my anxiety and just, yeah. That said, there was something very comforting about going there, and it's like a completely different environment, and you're a completely different person when you're in that environment, and it just kind of, as much as you don't want to go there and as much as you wish you weren't there, it does wash everything away. It just, you know, the bright lights, the beeping of the till, like, it does just lull you into this like false reality, I guess. And when she's talking about that stuff, I could really relate to that. However, this book goes in a very strange turn, and I honestly don't understand. I don't understand. Basically, this woman, Kaiko, I've just remembered her name, she basically, we get the idea early on that she is not, I don't know whether she's autistic or, you know, it's never expressly said that she is, but she has difficulty with reading social situations, knowing what to say in a social situation, or how to act. So she basically takes on people's speech patterns and she mimics people's habits, especially the people that she meets in this convenience store, which is fine. The first time she tells us that that's what she's doing, but then every time she has a conversation, she reiterates the point that she's mimicking this person's behaviour because she doesn't know how to act. And so even though it's a small book, it gets very repetitive. And then there is a very strange relationship that develops in here that just, it makes no sense. It's unrealistic for even the characters. It's just silly, and that's what I'm finding with a lot of these books that are about these outcast women who are a bit awkward socially. They're just silly, and actually there's something really strange about the fact that authors seem to proxy towards the idea that these women are rude rather than just awkward, and that frustrates me because, you know, I'm the least rude person. I would never be rude to somebody, yet I'm really awkward, and I want to read about somebody who feels that struggle and isn't just blatantly unpleasant. And I found Eleanor Oliphant completely unpleasant to the point where she annoyed me, and I very much found the same with Kaiko in this book. She's not a warm person, she's not pleasant, and even not being warm wouldn't be an issue, because I think warmth is very also difficult sometimes to achieve, but she's just not, I mean, she's not right, and she's not nice. You don't like her. She doesn't do good things, she doesn't think good things necessarily. And yeah, her actions in the end, I just was literally rolling my eyes. I just found it stupid. Sorry to call a book stupid. It did annoy me. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I get angry. And also, for me, the most pressing thing about this book was that the speech was just completely off point for every single character in this. The speech was really poorly written, and that was an issue considering that she was mimicking everybody else's speech. So her speech in turn was poorly written. Yeah, I would not recommend. Don't spend the £12.99. I'm sorry, I just didn't like it at all. Then I read The Wonder by Emma Donoghue. Now, I kind of picked this up on a whim actually when I saw it on a quick pick shelf on the library. Emma Donoghue, obviously author of Room, which I read years and years ago now and did enjoy. It's not necessarily my kind of thing, but I did enjoy it. And I've been wanting just easy reads recently. I just can't focus on anything extreme. I just, yeah, can't do it. So this appealed to me. This is basically, it's a historical novel set in Ireland, and it looks at a girl who claims that she has stopped eating for 4 months. She is fasting, and she is basically making the claim that God is keeping her alive on this like manna food from heaven. And this nurse is sent to monitor her, basically. She's not sent to care for her, but she's sent to monitor her so that they can prove that it really is that she's not eating. So this nurse, and she shares the watch with another woman, and they basically are there to watch this girl 24/7 for 2 weeks to make sure that she's actually not eating and that she's not just lying. Obviously, the nurse gets more involved than she should in the case because she's watching a girl who is effectively claiming to be starving herself. and obviously we find out that there's more to the case than meets the eye. I really did enjoy this, actually. It was really easy to read. The story was compulsive. Again, I'd say the ending was a bit silly, but not to the point where it really took you out of things. The characters in this were fantastic, especially the girl who is fasting. She was really fascinating. I think this was a really interesting look at, I guess, the extremes that religion can put people through, and also the effect that like extreme religion and extreme belief can have on a child who doesn't necessarily understand what to do with that or how to cope with it. And also the impact that that can have on the way that their family treats them, which is a subject that I'm always interested in. But generally, just in normal terms, this was a really fascinating historical read. Obviously, there's not much history stuff in there. It's quite confined to this girl's situation, although we do get sort of brief snippets of Irish history in there as well. Yeah, I would recommend it. It was enjoyable, it was fast, and I had fun reading it. Then I have two parenting books. Sorry, these are going to be cropping up now because if you didn't see my last video, I am pregnant at the moment, and the library I'm finding is a fantastic place to find books about pregnancy. They haven't got a huge section. There's like 2 shelves that are about pregnancy and birth, etc. But actually I'm having fun. I want to get them all. So anyway, so the first one I picked up was My First Pregnancy, it's edited by Dr. Joanna Gerling. This is interesting because I was worried that I was going to be picking up all these books that were outdated. Obviously things in like medicine and pregnancy treatments change very quickly, but actually this was released in 2019, so it's really recent if you did want something that's just a comprehensive guide, and that's exactly what this is. It's a comprehensive guide about all things pregnancy. So there's like your normal breakdown of the month-to-month stuff, and then there's discussions about what you can do with your work and the birth and the you know, just everything that you could need to know, what's going to happen to your body, what you can expect from your medical care. And I think what was really interesting about this, because obviously there are a lot of pregnancy apps, but what I found with them is that unless you are specifically knowing that you want to find out a piece of information, you kind of don't get that information until you realise that you want it, and then it's not there. Whereas this, because it is comprehensive, it tells you things that you wouldn't necessarily even think of. Like there's information in here, for instance, about how to claim the benefits that you're entitled to. There's information about at what stages of your pregnancy you can expect what. It had everything. It had everything that I needed, and I found it really fascinating. I found it really useful. There are also some really useful references to other guides and things in here, if you wanted to take a look at them, or websites, and just all sorts of fascinating things. And there are stats in here about births and, you know, making decisions about your own birth. And yeah, as I say, it's got everything you could need to know. So if you're in your first pregnancy and feeling a little overwhelmed, or like you don't really know where to start searching for good information, this kind of gives you a fantastic overview of everything. There is a labour chapter in here, I'm not gonna lie, and you know, thinking about that makes me feel a little bit sick. However, I still really enjoyed this. Then I've got one that I didn't enjoy so much, and this is How Not to F Them Up by Oliver James. Now, I'm not gonna lie, initially I was a bit hesitant about this book because it's a book about it's pretty much a book about motherhood written by a man, and okay, he's a psychologist, and okay, he says a disclaimer at the start that, you know, he uses motherhood as a general term. It could also mean fatherhood. He only refers to it as motherhood because obviously more mums statistically still stay at home with their children and do the main sort of parenting. That's fine, that's not the problem. This basically looks at, I don't know that the title is accurate. I don't know that it does teach you how not to fuck your children up. I personally think it kind of puts all of the pressure and the blame on the mum, and again, problematic because it's written by a man, but it basically breaks down motherhood into 3 main types, 3 main castes, shall we say. So there's organisers, there's huggers, and there's flexi mums, which are a mixture of both. That's fine, but then each section of the book is separated into those 3 groups, and Oliver James basically looks at the pluses and the minuses and what each group can do to your children, and he talks to various mothers about their experiences. It's just a bit problematic, the whole book. It's a bit judgy, it's a bit awkward. It's also obviously undeniably the fact that this man is casting judgment on mothers, and even though it is about general parenthood for the most part, there are sections that are predominantly about breastfeeding, giving birth, being pregnant, that are just kind of like, you can't, I mean, it kind of boiled my blood a little bit. And looking at the reviews, I'm not the only one. I have to say, a lot of the reviews said that this was kind of also aimed towards like middle class privileged white mothers. There is some of that. There's like discussions, certainly the women that he talks to are all kind of in a privileged position where they might not need to work, and they're making the decision whether or not to go back to work. I wouldn't say that it was something that I particularly noticed, but that's also something that a lot of people have picked up on. I did feel like there was some information in there about if you financially couldn't afford not to go back to work, but I guess predominantly it does lean towards the middle class white section of mothers. It's just a little bit of a problematic book, and it's kind of annoying, and I probably wouldn't recommend it, I'm afraid. And then I ended the month by reading The Dry by Jane Harper. Now, I'm not gonna lie, detective novels, you know, murder mysteries aren't normally my kind of thing because I find them too predictable. There's always two ways that these books can go. Either it's the good person who is the least likely person to have done the murder, which is usually the case I find, or it's somebody who's completely left field and hasn't even been part of the story, or, you know, suddenly has a different identity, you know, that kind of thing. So I avoid these books for those reasons, because the endings always irritate me. However, I've heard very good things about this, and to be honest, I just kind of felt like something like this at the moment. I thought it would satisfy me, and I'm not gonna lie, it did. So this is set in Australia during a drought of 2 years, and they haven't had any rain, and it's following these people in this rural setting who are trying to survive off no rain and trying to farm their land, etc. And there is a horrific murder in this town where a wife, a little boy and a husband die. The husband is automatically suspected. It's thought that maybe he was in money trouble because of not being able to farm his land, and in a panic he killed his wife, child and himself. And that's kind of just the story until our main character Aaron Falk, who used to be coincidentally friends with the man who has died, he goes to the funeral, but he is also a detective, and he kind of gets pulled by the family towards looking into things because they don't think it sounds right. And obviously it's not what it seems. It's not the best piece of fiction I've ever read. Would I say that it's a favourite read of mine? No. But did I enjoy the reading experience? Very much so. It's quite simplistic, I'm not gonna lie. And yes, I did predict who was going to be the killer because it was quite obvious from quite early on, I think. But that's kind of okay, and admittedly there was kind of two murders going on at once, because there was also something that happened to Aaron Falk and the friend who died when they were younger. A girl who was also in their friendship group passed away, and it was never really solved, so we flip between what's happening in the now and what happened back then. So you've kind of got two murders to play off, which makes it not quite as disappointing when the first one is so predictable. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I feel like this kind of read at the moment. If you've got any recommendations for just really immersive mysteries, then please do let me know. So those are all the books I read in January. As I say, it's been a better reading month than I've had in quite a while, and I've really enjoyed the books I've been reading, so that's nice. Please let me know down below what you've been reading, and I will see you next time. Bye.